Hey there, I'm Eric Doggett, and this is Photog TV, episode 4 for Friday, October 21st, 2011. Your website is your garden. Today, we're talking about the newly announced 1DX camera from Canon, as well as the Lytro light field camera. Also, Dustin is going to show us some SEO tips that have helped get his blog ranked highly in Google. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. This is Photog TV episode number 4. It's Friday, October 21st. We had a little bit of a scheduling conflict yesterday, and by conflict I mean I was out of town, so I was not able to do the recording for this. So we're doing it today on a Friday, and today we're going to talk a little bit about SEO as it applies to blogs, and how Dustin has used a lot of different tips and techniques and plugins to achieve a very nice SEO ranking for his website. Before we do that, though, we have introduced lately talking a little bit about news and some of the latest kind of camera news that hit the street. And this past week we had a couple things, basically 2 big camera announcements, and they're big for different reasons. First, we had Canon announce their brand new 1DX camera. And we also had a company called Lytro introduce their camera, which is kind of significant for a different reason, because it's the first camera that I know of that allows you to focus after the fact. So you take a picture and then you select which part of the image you want to focus on, and take it from there. So before we started, Dustin and I were kind of talking about that brand new 1D camera. So let's start with that, Dustin. What did you take away from that? What did you think about that whole announcement?
Well, I mean, it's definitely nice that they've upped a lot of new specifications and things like that. What is it? 52,000 ISO, I think, is the highest native setting it'll run on. But for shooting weddings, I do like the fact that I can shoot a lot of available light at receptions. I also use strobes too if I want to add that more dramatic effect. But I use a lot of primes when I'm shooting. I have a 24 millimeter f1.4 Canon L series that I love. It's super sharp and it's really, really bright lens. So putting that on the 1DX, I think, would be a great combination for reception shots, like dancing stuff and things like that. But also, I need the shutter speed, or the frames per second, getting that walking down the aisle stuff, or just crazy shots that happen, off the cuff. I think for me, it's about, buffer rate, like how fast can that thing write to the card, and part of that's going to be how fast, is your card writable. So that's one thing, but having a bigger buffer that can write fast is really important, especially if you're wanting to shoot like a sequence of shots, especially if they're all raw files. So I have a 1D Mark III currently, which does a great job. But yeah, there are times where I'm actually sitting around waiting for it to finish writing to the card so I can continue shooting.
Yeah, and I think, and this didn't really come out with the announcement, but I'm really excited to see what some of those image samples come out as. So, for example, I have a 5D Mark II. For me, and before that I had a 20D. In the 20D, I'd never go past 800 on the ISO. And once the 5D Mark II came out, I felt more comfortable going even a little bit further than that. I'm really interested to see what the breakdown is going to be, when that noise is really going to start to be visible, how many thousand your ISO is going to have to be set at before that becomes to be a problem. And also, I think significantly was that they kind of resisted the urge to basically go for a 30 megapixel sensor. We'd seen a lot that Canon was. Thanks.
That's pretty funny.
Sorry.
That's great. So is it Ugo? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Oh, how you doing? So Ugo is.
Fine. Sorry to interrupt you.
Before we started, Ugo was talking about the fact that Rick Salmon is doing a Creative Live class right now, and so I hinted at maybe we should just try to get Rick to give his class a break so he could join us here for a couple of minutes. We'll see if he does that. But we're talking right now about new camera announcements, and we're starting with this new Canon 1DX. So yeah, so they kind of resisted that urge to go with a huge sensor. I kind of thought they wouldn't do that. I thought they would go with a higher megapixel count because they were starting to kind of infringe on the medium format territory, and I thought, okay, this is where they're going to go. They're going to turn that into like a really high end but still low cost digital medium format camera, and they didn't do that. Dimension wise with a pixel count, they might be getting there quality wise. We won't know until we see some of those samples.
Well, I think that from a technical standpoint on sensors, when you cram more megapixels into an area, you are putting out more potential for there to be more noise sooner when you start cranking up to the higher ISOs. And I think that what Canon has done throughout the years that they've, like you were talking about, they've really resisted the urge. I think one of the things to keep in mind is who Canon's market is, and it's sports photographers, it's portrait and wedding photographers, slowly becoming filmmakers, but at the same time, I think Canon isn't really catering or working hard to cater to the filmmaker market because they have to stay true to their original client base. But if you cram more megapixels onto that sensor, yeah, you can end up with a larger resulting photo from that, but at the same time, you start gaining more noise at ISOs of 400, 600, 800, stuff like that. And I'm shooting at ISO 6400 on my 5D Mark II at receptions all the time. That in combination with the noise reduction in Lightroom 3, it's almost seamless. So I think more people are realizing they don't need a giant file, because I mean, let's be honest, are you really going to need a 30 megapixel file to print up, either, even if it's pictures going into a wedding album or a wall portrait? How big of a file do you really need for that? So rather than sacrificing these larger file sizes, are going to shoot fewer of them onto a memory card. I think that keeping it at a reasonable size is probably a much better decision.
Yeah, and it does get kind of like, now you've got like this decision to make, like at least on the commercial side, where before you were like, well, I someday would like to get a Hasselblad or something like that, and now I've got this kind of option on the Canon side, which maybe gets me a little bit closer quality wise, and it's not so expensive that it doesn't put me into that medium format kind of price range, and so it's a new thing to consider. And also, you mentioned sports shooters earlier, and this is what we're seeing now is like the beginning of the end of the separation of like the 1D and the 1DS line. It wasn't like, well, this is the camera you buy if you're a sports person, and this is the camera you buy if you're doing portrait work that you need, the best that they have. It's now one body, which makes me wonder we may never see that split again.
Yeah. I think that that is something that we have to remind people, is that photography in general, it's you pick the right tool for the job. It's not like a Swiss Army knife where you can use it for practically anything. I mean, that would be great, but if you're a commercial photographer and you want to cater to clients that need really, really high resolution images, and whether it's for products or for advertising or something like that, then maybe what you need to do is look into getting the H1 or whatever the most recent Hassi digital body out there is, rather than going the SLR route. Medium format bodies, they don't have a really high shutter speed because you've got those leaf shutters built into the lenses, but that if you're using strobes in a studio setting, you don't need a super high shutter speed. You're not doing a lot of fast action.
Right.
So I think it just goes back to the fact that when people are making decisions about purchasing equipment, you really got to think about what kind of photography you do and what is the right tool for the job, rather than just buying the most the fastest or most expensive thing out there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Let's before we get on to talking about Dustin, let's also cover real quick this other announcement which happened earlier this week. A company called Lytro, which kind of made some waves, I think, earlier in the year when they announced this technology. They announced this week their first consumer camera using this technology. And if you guys haven't heard about it, what it does is it allows you to kind of take a picture and focus after the fact. So which it's amazing every time I hear about it and read it. It's I guess just a giant math problem that they figured out or something, because I don't know how you can do that. But they showed off this consumer camera which is coming out next year, and it looks like it's just a little box, which is really kind of a weird design, and it's just got a lens on one end and a little LCD on the other, and you take a picture, and judging by how they were showing people using it, it looks like on the back of this display you can say what part of the image you want to focus on, which is cool in one respect, but also it's weird because this display is so tiny. I don't see how you can even get particular enough with that. But it might be a situation where you can download those files later and use their software, hopefully, to process that a little bit more, or maybe as like a plug-in to Photoshop. What do you guys think about that? Would that be a camera that you're interested in, or is that more of like a fad thing, or what do you think?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead,
I would never buy it. Personally, it's not something that interests me at the moment.
Yeah.
I think that being able to focus after shooting in post processing might be a crutch for some people. Sometimes it can be helpful, but I wouldn't buy a camera just for that. I would want my best camera, my best DSLR, maybe to have that feature, but I wouldn't get a camera just for that. What I see there is a potential. Is the fact that basically what you get, or the technology, maybe not what you get with this first model, but the technology, the underlying technology, is like having a 3D camera with a single lens. I think the possibilities are endless. You could really do some cool stuff. Somebody probably has to figure out an interesting application for this, which is not just focusing after the shoot.
In my point of view, it could be usable when you want to blur some faces. For example, there must be a lot of faces on one photo, and you want to blur them. You want just one photo in a focus, so one face in a focus. That could be usage but I'm not really interested in this camera.
I think it's kind of it's a neat technological breakthrough. I mean, when they first started testing it out, I signed up for their email list and was just looking some of the drawings of how the technology was supposed to work, how it's supposed to pull light from around an object and things like that. But where I really actually, if you want to take this and apply it to a professional application, I see it being more useful in fast action photography, like maybe sports photography or NASCAR, or even like wildlife, especially if you're a bird photographer. Things where maybe the composition of the shot, you can focus on getting the composition right, and then after the fact you can go back and double check to make sure the focus is on the subject, whether it's a swan in flight or a race Indy 500 car coming at you or something like that. As far as the pictures that they have on their site are really cool to play around with, but my biggest thing is, if I'm going to use this in a professional application, again, I do a lot of portraits and weddings, so I guess I could try it out at maybe the walking down the aisle shots, because sometimes people have trouble getting those in focus because people are moving towards the camera or away from the camera, which is always kind of hard to autofocus tracking if you're what camera you're using. But my other thing too is how bright of a camera is it? How much light is it letting in? What's its highest ISO rating? What's the aperture rating on that lens? you know, and you're also dealing with a lens that is a fixed focal length. You know, are you happy with that fixed focal length? You know, whatever that focal length happens to be. So, I mean, it's definitely cool. I kind of see it as like a prototype kind of process where people try it out. Other people will discover, you know, additional uses for it, but where it ends up, and you know, if that technology ends up in other cameras and stuff like that, I think it's one of those things we kind of have to wait and see what the public does with it.
Well, and I think that you hit it on the head for me. To me, it sounds like a feature for some other camera. So I wouldn't be surprised if Canon or Nikon or Sony or somebody scoops that up at some point, because unless this company has got the kind of resources to build that out into like a professional body with, you know, professional selection of lenses, that kind of investment, I don't see them making if they're just going to be selling this little camera, especially if, like you said, if all it does is this one feature. It's not like you know, it's not like it's some sort of Instagram enabled thing or something, you know, like that has a little bit more of a social context to it. It's a technical feature that some people probably will pick it up and play with it and be like, that's really cool. I'm not gonna really use it for anything, but it was cool to just see that work.
Yeah. And
Just one point about it. The lens is actually an 8 times optical zoom, so it's not fixed focal length.
okay.
It's got a constant maximum aperture of f2. So it's not bad.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
It is set at f2 then, right? And
Yep.
it's fixed at f2, so you can't stop it down anymore.
You can't?
I'm wondering if that's what I was wondering, is because it's like if you're using a camera that can do like this incredible depth, whether the depth of field can be wide enough for the whole thing, or no, you're going to get f2. You just got to figure out where that f2 is going to happen.
Yeah, you don't need to stop it down to get more depth of field. You get infinite virtual depth of field anyway, so you can shoot at f2 anyway.
It's actually, yeah, it's definitely interesting. It reminds me of a, I want to say it was Kodak, but maybe it was actually Samsung who came out with a digital camera that had 2 lenses. One was focused at infinity, and it was stopped down. It was almost like a pinhole, so everything was tack sharp. The other one was stopped at like an f2, and it was a, you know, same focal length, but everything was out of focus. And then the software inside the camera allowed you to pick. It would combine the 2 images, sort of like HDR, but it was focus HDR instead of like exposure HDR, and it lets you pick what area of the camera or of the picture that would be sharp. So maybe this is something a tad bit similar. I don't know. Maybe it's taking 2 pictures simultaneously and then letting you combine them at a later point using their viewing software.
That's pretty cool. All right, let's go ahead and move into what we were going to talk about today, which was Dustin Meyer talking to us about SEO as it applies to blogs and websites and basically any of the content you put out there. If you haven't been to Dustin's site, it's dustinmeyer.com, and you can get a good taste of some of the work he's done, plus the posts and all the information up there. Dustin, can you kind of lead us a little bit through that and talk about some of the things you've been doing to improve your rankings?
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so basically this is the back side of it. Here's what we'll do. I'll go ahead and show you the front just in case you guys aren't actually viewing it. It's basically a blog site, and up until recently I actually didn't have all the links down here before because cosmetically I didn't like the way it looked, but after reading a few different forums and stuff and also talking to some SEO guys, I went ahead and opted to have my links down here. But I use a company called Photo Blogs for my template, and the reason why I went with them was because originally I was with another company for my website hosting called Show It Sites, and it was really cool. I really liked all the Flash animation stuff that they could do and everything else, but over time I realized that my SEO rankings were never going to improve by using a Flash website type of template. So I already had a Photo blog for my actual blog site and decided to go ahead and just combine both of them into one site. So unlike other blogs, rather than having my main page be all my posts, I opted to go ahead and have a static landing page. And the reason for that is because Google actually counts against you how long it takes for your website to load. So if you have all of your posts loading on your main page, and it takes more than 30 seconds for your entire website to load once someone goes to it, that actually gets penalized against you. Plus, for my particular type of clientele, I have a lot of brides that are actually sneaking online while they're at work. And so I want my site to load fast. I want them to be able to get to it and not have to worry about sitting there and waiting for it to load and having to worry about their boss coming around the corner and seeing them, not working. But so I just have a static image here. I've got text that outlines, what I do. It's a lot of, my description for my site, which includes the keywords that I compete for Austin Wedding Photographer. I also do senior portraits and family portraits, which these link to other sites. One of the things when it comes to links on your site, as well as links going to your site from other sites, that's important to keep in mind is that if there's a particular keyword that you are trying to compete for, it's much better if the link itself that is linked to your website has the keywords as the link. So rather than say, for instance, say for some reason if Eric Doggett was linking to my website for my wedding photography or something like that, it's better if the link on his site says Austin Wedding Photographer and then links to dustinmeyer.com. If it said just Dustin Meyer and that would link to my site, then that doesn't, it's still, the link part is good, but it's definitely less effective because Google counts it better if you can actually read the keywords in the text of the link. So anyway, I have several different pages, and they all have all the various different information on here. These all badges, these all link to different pages on my site. Unless I don't have an article on my site, I try to keep all the links that are on my site go to other pages on my site, so when people click on them, it's keeping the people on my site. And then let's see here, I'm going to just make sure that everybody can still hear me and everything. Okay, good. You guys can all still...
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, since we're not... This is the first time I've done it from my computer, so... But anyways, so, and the other reason that I also opted out of doing a flash site is, this is all text, and you can grab it, copy it, paste it, and everything. So, again, having actual, text on here, as HTML is much, much better for your site. And I think most people already know this, but I'm just saying it again to remind people. Now, the other thing about my site that I'm absolutely adamant about, and I tell people this all the time, and I don't mind sharing it with you guys. Every page on your site needs to have some amount of content besides just pictures. It's got to have text, and that text needs to be relevant to whatever's on that particular page. Please, please, please do not spam your site with repeating keywords over and over again. Austin Wedding Photographer, Austin Wedding Photographer. Google algorithms read that and they pick it up and it penalizes you for that. It needs to be written as if the person reading it was an actual human being. You need to write the content on your site as if you're writing it for a blind person. If you're going to sit there and actually read a story to someone, they're not going to want to sit there and hear you repeat the keywords Austin Wedding Photographer over and over and over again. They want to hear a story. So you need to write content on your pages that tells a story. So with that being said, when you guys are creating this content, make sure you are aware of who your audience is. Write your content for the audience that you want to attract. Now, on the images themselves, here's one of the cool features about ProPhoto blogs that I really liked was the fact that you have these kind of Flash type of galleries, but they're not actually Flash, they're Java. This site looks exactly the same on an iPad or an iPhone as it does on my computer screen. So it's smooth transitions, loading time, everything else. And what I'm going to show you guys here in this next window is, let's see here. I'm actually going to, sorry, my Dropbox keeps downloading files, so I'm going to change that out. But I'm going to go to, I'm in Chrome right now, so I'm going to go to View and go to Developer and go to View Source. Now, this is what your website looks like to Google. Of course, over time, they keep saying Google will be able to actually start seeing what's in a picture besides just what its file name is and what metadata is inside of it. But this is going to be the true test of whether your site is really vamped for SEO or not. And you can do this with any website out there. In fact, if you want to do some research, and look for some of your competitors in your area, this is a fantastic way to kind of see what keywords your competitors are using to try and get their rankings. So in line 11 right here, meta name keywords, you can see all the keywords that that I've nested into my site to compete for. So Austin wedding photographer, Austin wedding photography, wedding photography, blah 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 blah, engagement portraits. So those are there, and then on this actual page, which up here, the title of the page is Austin Wedding Photographer, Dustin Meyer Photography, and the subpage is Engagement Portraits. So that's really important that your pages have unique names that are relevant to the content that's on that page. So when people are clicking on it, if they've come to your site from a Google search, there's a Google bot following their every move, and it's paying attention to what they're clicking on. So when it comes to the page that says Engagement Portraits, guess what you better have on that page? Engagement Portraits. So now, how does Google know if these are actual engagement portraits? Well, the cool thing is that, and I actually kind of thought of this on my own, this is one of my best reasons for using a ProPhoto blog for my actual website. Flash will never get you this. Those really cool galleries that I was just showing you that look like Flash actually show the file names and the titles and the links for all those pages on the site. So even though it looks like Flash, it treats it like HTML. And some of you may have already noticed the way I name my files here. These are all engagement portraits, so I name my files Austin Engagement Portraits, Dustin Meyer Photography, and then a number. So I'm putting my keywords in my photo titles. On top of that, before I even upload these to my website, in Lightroom, when I am importing them, I have importing presets that add keywords to the metadata of each image. So when the image is being edited and created in Lightroom, when it gets exported, it retains those keywords inside those files. Google can read the metadata of your files. It's doing it already. In fact, I think if as just for an example here, let's do Austin Senior Portraits. This is one that we rank pretty high for. So, so Senior Portraits, Austin.com by Dustin Meyer. Now, if you look, images for Senior Portraits already, there's a few of them here that are mine. So this one here, if you click on the file, it'll say more image info. I mean, look at this, folks. It's got everything in here. And the keywords that I nested in this file inside Lightroom, here they are right here.
That's a big tip, Dustin, because I know a lot of photographers will go the route of just tagging their blog post titles, for example. They'll stuff like Senior Portrait Photographer, Joe Smith, Joe Smith's pictures or whatever, and they'll try to go that route, and they'll just leave it to WordPress or whatever when they upload those images to to do whatever it does with them, but to take that kind of proactive action beforehand and add that information, that sounds like it does, like, it's a pretty big deal.
It's a huge deal, and what we're talking about right now is you have to think of it like your website is kind of like your garden. You are fertilizing it so that when you have visitors, aka rainfall, come to your garden, it's going to create really better results than if it just, your visitors landed on a really concrete type of site that, isn't really tilled or fertilized with the kind of keywords that you want to compete for. So you have to be aware of every aspect of your site, and those aspects are the actual text on the site, the content, aka like the text, as well as the images, and also the naming structure of your site. If you guys look at my URLs up here, we've got seniorportraitsaustin.com. The category that they're listed under when I'm posting it is Austin Senior Portraits, and then for some reason WordPress gave the number 2 there. And then the title of this post is, it's a sneak peek Brianna's Senior Portraits. So in a way, yes, I am doing some keyword stuffing in the title. However, it's not something that's so obtrusive where it's like Austin Senior Portraits, Dustin Meyer Photography, and then eventually we get to Brianna. It's there, it's readable, and this way with the naming structure, it tells people right off the bat, actual readers, not just Google, but it tells real human beings that this is a sneak peek of a girl named Brianna, and it's her senior portraits. So the next thing that I think is important, and again you can see down here the actual file name of the page or the photo, but let's see, what was the next thing we were going to cover? Okay, so you guys are kind of getting an idea of how to create a site that is really good for getting everything fertilized. You've got proper keywords in your files. You've got the files themselves are named with the kind of keywords you want to compete for. You've got additional text comments on here. The other thing also is the reason why I eventually went back to including a footer on each of my pages is I did a bunch of reading, and it turns out that footers are really, really great ways for Google bots when they first come to your site to quickly find all of the pages on your site, because these are all active links that will link to any page on my site, any page, any post, recent comments, recent posts. The great thing about the recent comments and the recent posts sections is that these are dynamic, so anytime anybody out there interacts with your site, it automatically updates this stuff, and Google loves dynamic content, that is HTML based, it's trackable, it changes frequently. So it shows that this website has a lot of activity going on it. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the dashboard area of the site to kind of show you the back end of how I make this all happen. Now, part of it is important when it comes to how often you update your site with new posts and things like that. And you can do something where maybe it's once a month or so. Once a week is better. Once a day would be fantastic, but keep it realistic. At times it's actually better to have your site be more catered towards actual readers than just trying to create fresh new content all the time just to get Google's attention. Because if you start flooding your site with stuff that's irrelevant, then you're actually going to have people leaving your site, and that's called a bounce, and that's not really going to help your SEO standings. So anyways, let's there's a few features in my blog that I feel are necessary. First off, Jetpack I have installed because it's free, and all the plugins that we're talking about today, if you just go to your plugins section here and click on Add New, you can search for all these plugins. But Jetpack works by tying your free WordPress.com account with your WordPress self-hosted site. So you just create a free account with WordPress.com. You don't actually have to create a blog on WordPress.com. You just have to create an account, and then you can install Jetpack. And what it'll do is it'll allow you to check things like how much spam are you getting, how much, how many visitors are you getting, it's stuff like that. So it's a quick way to just get a quick glance when you first come in to see, where your traffic's coming from. The thing that I like is, what was published on that day where you got a lot of traffic. So for example, October 17th, I published my latest post, which is my goodnight post. And we'll just click over to that real quickly so you guys can kind of see it from the front side. So this, I took this picture with my iPhone 4S a few days ago and just was really surprised by how great it turned out. So I figured I'd just post it on there. But anyways, so this is what it looks like on the front end. And when I posted that, I got, let's see, 273 visitors for that particular post. So having something like Jetpack installed is really great. It's kind of like having Google Analytics, but without having to actually log into Google Analytics. It's just a really great way to see all the stats here. We've got which ones have had the most views, like my homepage, or Wedding Photography by Dustin Meyer, which is my wedding gallery. My latest sneak peek for Emily and Nick got 6 views this week. It also shows me, where these links are coming in from, like Facebook or Google or LinkedIn. Wow, I actually got somebody clicking from LinkedIn. And then also search terms. These show you what terms people are typing in on Google and what brought them to your site. So portrait engagement. For this week I had 2 visits from someone who used those particular terms. Magazine Austin Monthly, we got published in that last month, so that would explain why somebody probably typed that one in. And then of course people that are typing for you directly, they just want to look you up on Google. So but again, you guys need to be tracking this information, because this information tells you where your customers are coming from and how they're interacting with your site. The other thing that I like about the Pro Photo blogs, under the P3 Customize options, they have SEO options for your site built into their theme. So for me, the price of getting a Pro Photo blog theme paid for itself for just a few of these features. So I think it's under settings. And yeah, search engine optimization right here. First off, you would drop in your Google Analytics code right here, and then I think, but then for search engine optimization, this is where you actually tell your website how to create that naming structure, like we saw, at the top here for the senior portraits. Your title tags, like the name of your site, the description of your site, and this would be on the actual posts itself, and then the title tag on the static homepage is the blog name, aka the site name, which is Austin Wedding Photographer Dustin Meyer. And then on individual pages, things like that. This is where you tell your site, okay, what word do you want to come first? Up here when someone's on your website, Austin Wedding Photographer, Dustin Meyer Photography. For me, Austin Wedding Photographer is the word, the keywords that I'm competing for, so I want those keywords to come first. Otherwise, maybe your category title will come first instead of your actual site name. So you want to make sure that they're in the right order. This is where you plug in your meta descriptions. So what you put here is what you're going to see up here. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is you will only have so many, you only have so much space in your meta description. If you go over, it gets truncated. So if you notice, it just kind of cuts it off right here. So maybe what I should do is go back and create a slightly shorter description so that way I'm not losing that information. And where does this information show up? Well, when someone is looking for you on Google, it's this information right here. This is what your meta description shows up for. And here again is the page title with the site title. So when people pull it up, it says Austin Wedding Photographer, Dustin Meyer Photography. Notice again, I'm trying to not make it go too long because I don't want it to get truncated and cut off. And then the meta keywords that we saw under the view source on the other page, they're all listed right over here. And there's plenty of other options inside this particular page on the ProPhoto blogs to prevent any SEO mishaps. One of the biggest problems that a lot of people run into and they don't realize it is having duplicate content on your site. That gets counted against you, and that is something that you definitely want to watch out for. And the nice thing is the ProPhoto blogs theme does it for you right here, so you don't have to constantly monitor it.
Dustin, on that topic, have you heard anything about Google's stance on duplicate content on your blog versus taking that same post and then go putting it on Google Plus? If that also is an issue or not, because Google Plus seems to be a good platform for sharing things in addition to your blog. And sometimes I have this urge to take a blog post and just copy and paste, but I don't know if I'm going to be hit with that.
You know, I think it's one of those things. Google Plus is still kind of in its infancy, and I feel like it really doesn't count against you if you have duplicate content from your site and putting it on Google. I do personally feel like if you just take a little bit of extra time and rewrite what you want to say when you post it somewhere else, maybe just summarize it rather than just copying it. The way well, first off, it won't count against you, obviously, because it's not duplicate content anymore. But the other thing is that my strategy when it comes to taking something from, let's say, my blog and say I want to post it on Facebook or something like that, what I would rather do is, instead of just grabbing this photo and uploading it to Facebook with a link coming back to my site, I'm actually just going to paste the URL and then put almost like a teaser or like a trailer phrase that said, something like, I was outside by the pond tonight and this is what I saw, ... and then the link. It's almost like you want to pull people to your site, because that traffic coming to your site from a site like Facebook or Google Plus is that's going to boost your SEO rankings, because it's showing Google that I think it's going to show people that, or show Google that your site has got a lot of good stuff. So cool. So yeah, I mean, you can take stuff from your site and post it in other places, but keep in mind that really what you want to do is drive that traffic to your home base, which is going to be your website.
Yeah.
As far as other plugins that I've got installed on my site here, I don't have a whole bunch of extra ones because I feel like the ProPhoto blog kind of does a lot of it for me. I've got Jetpack. I've got my database backup, Akismet, to keep spam off, and then I have the share this buttons, which we have over here. But I try to not have a lot of duplicate plugins that do a lot of the same stuff, because for me personally, I feel like that might confuse my site as far as how to keep things optimized. But the other thing too that I feel is really important, from not only a personal standpoint, from a customer standpoint, as well as for SEO rankings, I see a lot of blogs that they have the entire post loading, and they'll have multiple posts loading on their main page. So when a bride comes to their blog, there may be 10 posts on that first page, and it's showing all 50 images from each post. So you're waiting on 500 or more pictures to load, which again, loading times count against you. And it doesn't give them any reason to click on any links. So I actually opt to show excerpts or summaries of my posts when they come to my post page, because I want them to click. I want them to click on the picture or on the text and go to that page, because now they're on a completely different URL, and that shows Google activity. You know that people are actually moving around on my website, and they're checking out, you know, all these individual pages rather than just one giant stream.
That's a really cool point, because I like that, because otherwise if and I'll have to go change this on my blog now that we've had this little tip, because otherwise if you've got, say, 10 posts and you're showing all the images from each post, you really have no idea what, you know, if somebody likes something, because all they did was they went to the blog and they did a little scroll of the mouse or their trackpad or whatever and saw all the images and all the posts, and then they moved on. There was no further interaction there. So giving them just a teaser or some reason to click into that story, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, and like I said before, you know, loading times are counting against you, and so you don't want all these. And photographers love putting giant photos on their blog, and I totally understand that. But when you are loading all of those giant images on your main page, that takes a really long time. And, you know, again, you want to just kind of usher your visitors to go to the different pages and check everything out, you know, and not just stay on the main page and not, you know, not be active. And I think that, you know, once... you know, also make sure your images are sized properly. You don't want them too large for the area that they're intended to go into, because, you know, you want to keep those file sizes as small as possible, but still, you know, looking good. But, you know, other than that, oh, the other thing I was going to show you guys was how to actually make your URL, your main URL, be a static page instead of a post page. If you go down to, I want to say it's either general or maybe it's reading. I always have to double check. Okay, so if you go to settings and you go down to reading, the option is right here, front page displays. This is where most people have it. It's checked for your latest posts. So this is why every time you go to somebody's website, and if it's a blog, it loads all the posts. So what I did was I opted to do a static page, and then once you've actually made the page, you go here and then pick, you know, what the front page is going to be, which the name of that page is Wedding Photography by Dustin Meyer, which is the main page on my site, and the post page is going to be the page that I call blog, and that's the link on the front of my website here that takes you to the blog page where all my posts are nested. So, but that's as much as I could fit in our time slot here. I am going to open it up for questions. So,
well, I'm gonna jump in and say that my takeaway from all of this is that my website is my garden. There's a show title right there. Our website is our garden. I'm gonna see if we can get Springsteen to put together a song for us.
Oh, nice. That would be cool. Get the boss.
There you go.
Does anybody else have any questions that we might have, you know, about stuff that we covered?
Yeah, I would like to ask the question that Daniel typed. I had the same question in mind, actually. Is this all WordPress, or is part of the site WordPress, part of it is something else?
The actual, the entire site is a WordPress blog, and the reason why I opted for that was because I wanted every link on my site to stay on the same URL. I didn't want it to go to a different site unless it was for a completely different type of content. So as you see here, when I clicked on the seniors link, it took me to my other website, which again is a WordPress blog, but it's the seniorportraitsaustin.com site. Everything else, though, about the site is it's all the same server.
Also, the
same
galleries
URL.
come with the ProPhoto template.
Yes, they're all different parts, and let me. If you go to P3 Customize under Appearance, you'll go to Galleries option over here, and this is where you determine what kind of gallery and what the settings will be. Some people want to have the more like slideshow type of gallery where it's a big picture with some thumbnails underneath. I actually like to use the Lightbox feature because I found when it comes to the code for the HTML, the Lightbox is the one which is when it looks like this. This is the Lightbox here. The Lightbox one is the one that actually loads all of the file names into the HTML. So I haven't tested the slideshow one where it's a giant picture with smaller pictures to see if that one still, if it loads all the individual file names, but the Lightbox does, and that's good for SEO.
Justin, does that support? Does it support video at all, as far as like a gallery of video clips?
Actually, yes, it does. My wedding photography page isn't actually pictures. It's a embedded video from Vimeo.
Oh,
So
cool.
I just drop the code in here. You treat this just like it's a blog post, but it's a page. So rather than people having to click through a bunch of pictures, I just nested a Vimeo video, and they can watch this instead of having to click through a bunch of photos. So it's extremely flexible, and it's pretty much whatever you want to make of it.
That's cool.
Dustin, do you sell any maybe like fine art or any prints individually? And if you don't, how would you suggest to do that? Say you were running a blog like yours, and say that you wanted to kind of branch off and do some fine art stuff with maybe some photography that you've done in the last 10 years or whatever. And
Well, what I would actually recommend, there's a site called 500px that actually allows you to sell your images that you've uploaded to them, but it's through their site. There are other, I think there's Redcart is one, and
PicPic is another one.
PicPic is another one, and isn't what's the one that Eric Hegwer uses?
there's Smug Mugs and Folio.
Right. What I'm trying to think of are solutions that allow you to actually host it on your own server rather than through somebody else's site. Oh gosh, what is that called? No, it's not PhotoMagic. But there's Redcart, and you're going to want to look for options that allow you to install this on your own server, and that way it'll kind of fit within your current design already. It'll make it more seamless, and you're keeping that traffic on your site.
Yeah.
So rather than having them go off to somebody else, like Kodak Gallery or Pictage or whatever, that traffic stays on your site.
Okay.
But
yeah. I use Zenfolio right now, and it's like it's keeping me over there because I really want to go back to a blog type of thing and host it back on my server that I've been paying for.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big proponent of kind of, I mean, I don't like to micromanage everything, but I do like to be in control when I need to be. And if you can have it where you're controlling the amount of traffic on your site for your customers, as well as the links that they're clicking on and everything else, that's more power to you. So it's one of the reasons why I switched away from Show It Sites and went with a WordPress site for my blog, or for my entire website, because I wanted to have more control.
Okay. Is there a theme that you would recommend for me when I'm getting back into a WordPress theme? I used to do it a few years ago, but
well, what I was talking about earlier, the one that I use for all my websites is Profoto Blogs. I think they've upgraded to Profoto 4, and it's got a few additional features that are pretty handy. But I bought this theme and have kept it pretty much up to speed. And the reason why I bought it was just because of how customizable it is, whether you want to create just a blog, or if you want to create more of like a website looking kind of blog. The galleries were really important to me, and also the built-in SEO features were something that really appealed to me. So they do have extra designs that are included that I thought was pretty handy, and they're all different kinds of styles. So if there's a good chance you might find something in here that kind of fits your style. They even have some that are extremely minimal, so you can kind of rebrand it yourself. But for me, it was really important to have that kind of flexibility, but without having to know HTML coding like right off the bat. So for me, it was a good investment.
Yeah,
it was a one-time investment. That's the nice thing.
Do they charge you for upgrades and updates and stuff like that?
If it's like a major feature upgrade, then yes. But if it's just because they needed to improve the stability on something, or I think at one point they even included the ability to add Facebook like buttons to your blog for free, or if WordPress gets updated and you need to actually update your WordPress engine, then they will send out an update for the theme itself to stay compatible with the most current version of WordPress.
What do you do when you post a new post on your blog? Do you do anything to advertise it, like sharing it on Twitter, Facebook, Google+? What works best?
I actually, yes, first off, I do. And recently, Facebook has decided that they're no longer going to allow you to automatically import RSS feeds onto your pages. So you have to manually cut and paste the URL onto a Facebook page. However, I do use FeedBurner for my blog, and FeedBurner is now owned by Google. So what you'll do is you'll go to feedburner.com, and then you will register your blog feed here, and it'll create a unique URL for that blog, or for that site. And then if you go with WordPress, you'll need to actually grab that new FeedBurner URL and drop it into your settings here, so that when people click on the subscribe to my blog feature, it actually says, okay, well, it's a FeedBurner URL, not just the URL of the site, which it's over here somewhere. But the thing I like about FeedBurner, over here under Optimize, there's Publicize. There's over here the Socialize feature allows you to add a Twitter account to your FeedBurner account. So when I update something on my blog, it automatically feeds it to my Twitter account. My Twitter account feeds to my Facebook profile. So once I post something on my blog, it automatically updates my Twitter account. I can choose if I want to add additional text at the beginning of the post, include a link. If I want to add hashtags to it, I can. So if you're a stock photographer or if you're a landscape photographer, you can add hashtags like landscape, or whatever you want to do, or wedding photography or something like that. So this is what the tweets look like down here. So it uses the Google URL shrinker, and so FeedBurner's got a lot of really great ways to kind of keep track of your stats and all that good stuff, and a way to kind of keep everything updated. I know some people like to use Hootsuite, which is a great tool. There's also CoTweet out there, and these are other companies that provide services where they monitor your site and allow you to feed stuff to Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff. But yes, I do it quite frequently, because it's just a really quick way for me to get the word out whenever I update my site.
What sends you more traffic between Twitter, Facebook, and Google+, or?
Well, let's find out.
So
I'm going to click on my site stats here, and according to the most recent statistics for this week, it looks like Facebook is my top referrer.
Yeah, what I noticed is that I have a few hundred followers on Twitter and friends on Facebook versus 12,000 people who have added me to their circles on Google+.
Mm-hmm.
But if I post a link to my blog on Google+, I get less traffic than from Twitter and Facebook.
Right. And I honestly, I kind of feel like you have to think about who you're putting it out there for when you put it on these various different sites. As a lot of the people that circled you on Google Plus, they're probably all photographers. So they're used to looking at that kind of content all day long. So it may not be as appealing for them. So, however, your friends on Facebook or your followers on Twitter are probably not photographers, or maybe they are. Maybe it's more of a mix, but you've got more people that are more interested in that kind of content, and that's why they're clicking over. So, but we are coming up on an hour, so I wanted to just kind of cover all these kinds of topics and stuff. I get a lot of people asking about questions like this, so I'll let Eric wrap it up.
Yeah, I think it was really informative. I liked some of those tips there. So if you guys are interested, be sure to head over to photog.tv. We'll post this tomorrow, and you can watch the episode right there. If you've got ideas for future things that you want Dustin and I to talk about, or people that you'd like us to interview, please let us know as well, because we can try our best to get them on as well. So every week we do this at 12 o'clock CST on Thursday. Today was special, like I mentioned earlier, because of some scheduling conflicts, me being out of town. I wasn't able to do it yesterday, but we will pick this up again next Thursday, and I hope to see you there.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks a lot for coming.
Thanks.